Welcome to How to Save Your Marriage with Nicola Beer, a full show of tips and practical strategies to repair, rebuild, and strengthen your relationship. If you are currently stuck, wondering if your marriage can be saved, or you know you want to save it but don't know how to go about changing it, this show is for you. To book your free marriage strategy session with Nicola, get the free marriage ebook or donate. If you are enjoying the show and want to help keep it flowing, visit www.nicolabeer.com.
Hi and welcome. I've got a really interesting topic today, so I'm so pleased you've tuned in to listen. And this is about being addicted to misery, being addicted to being a victim and being unhappy. This is often a question that I get asked, sometimes by those members in my Facebook group or through email, saying, can a person be addicted to being miserable, Nicola? And I know often they're talking about a parent, a loved one, a romantic partner, and yes, sometimes people can get stuck in negative thought loops, in being the victim in life. And I'm going to explore why that is, how that is. We'll look at a little bit of science, an interesting study, and I'll then give you some tips on what to do if you are in a relationship with someone who is very miserable and negative and it's affecting you and your relationship with them, as well as if you find that you're stuck in a negative mindset right now and you really want to change it, or you would like to see if you can change it. I'll give some tips on how to do that as well, and just some things to focus on, because it can be extremely challenging when you find yourself in a relationship with someone who is negative or who likes to focus on the difficulties in life and what's not working rather than what is working. A person that will see the worst case scenario in things that haven't even happened. It can bring down the whole atmosphere of the day in the home, just by listening to their comments and the way that they express themselves. Many couples who have booked me for anger management around the world, it's actually their partner that has said, I've had enough. I can't handle their negativity. I can't handle their anger. They wake up in a bad mood. They get angry over the smallest things. It's poisoning our relationship. It's poisoning the atmosphere in the home. So I'm going to be sharing some science, like I mentioned, a really interesting study, which I'll get into straight away, and some actions and tips on what you can do. So there's a study that is sort of linked to this, and I'll share it with you. I thought it was really quite interesting. So we've all heard the term misery likes company. And sometimes, yes, miserable people seek more misery in their lives and seek out miserable company. And an interesting study carried out by Eduardo Andre and Joel Cohen in 2017 found that people that loved horror films had a different reaction to those that avoided horror movies. So what they did is they got a group of participants and they divided them into two. People that love horror movies and people that absolutely avoid them, don't really enjoy them, they just avoid them. And they found that the people that loved horror movies, they were able to experience happiness and joy at the same time as watching horrific, sad, gut-wrenching, dramatic, painful, scary scenes. They could experience fear, sadness with happiness and joy. And those that avoided horror movies couldn't. They were extremely unhappy and stressed watching those scenes, and very happy when those scenes were over. They felt relieved, and then they could feel happy that it was over. And this kind of supports the idea that some people actually do enjoy misery, unhappy emotions, and they can experience happiness at the same time as fear and sadness and horror, whereas others can't. And we all know some people that like to also play victim in their relationship. They like to be the victim in their family, in their work. People are doing things to them. It's not their fault. Perhaps in the past it's got them what they want from others. Maybe being the victim got them sympathy, gifts or attention. And then they associate benefit in being a victim. So in being a victim, they're not weak, they actually reap rewards. It's a pleasurable experience. In fact, some people that book a breakthrough session with me to stop being a victim, or who want to stop living with a negative attitude and mindset, are constantly blaming others for their position, not taking responsibility. And when I dig a little bit deeper with this, they're scared of taking responsibility. They're scared of being at fault. And then I go a bit deeper. Why are you scared of being at fault? Why are you scared of being responsible for your life decisions and actions? And often it's because if they are responsible and they mess up, they may never live it down, they may punish themselves, they may treat themselves so badly that they want to avoid taking any blame for anything in their life as a way to avoid self-punishment. I've had quite a few cases like that. And there's also a big body of research that suggests that people's thoughts get hardwired into habitual thought loops. And unless we do the conscious and unconscious change to our thinking, the same thoughts will create their reality. And if those thoughts aren't changed, their beliefs and those thoughts will determine their feelings, their emotions, their attitudes, their behavior, and their whole life will be predictable. They'll be hardwired to living a life of misery and unhappiness if that's the foundation of their thinking. In fact, Dr. Joe Dispenza says that unless we do the unconscious and conscious change work, well, he really refers to the unconscious change work, we will actually have a predictable life by the time we're age 35. That means if we don't do any change work, who we are at 35 years old and how we think at 35 years old will continue for the rest of our life. That is his research. Now, there are many reasons why people may end up in these negative thought loops and find themselves somehow addicted to pain, misery, unhappiness, and negativity. Here are some examples. A difficult or turbulent upbringing where parents didn't express happiness or love and were focused on negativity and were generally unhappy. I grew up, as many of you know, my mum was diagnosed with bipolar about only 10 years ago. She didn't get any help for her depression, for her anxiety. She was constantly screaming, breaking down, swearing, shouting, hitting, And so as a child, if that's what you see, you think, oh, this is how life is. This is normal. We all copy our parents or our caregivers from the age of 0 to 7. And it's only if we get positive examples of how to be that we can start to change this way of thinking, acting and responding to the world. Then there's low self-esteem, lack of confidence, inability to see someone's worth. If someone really doesn't hold themselves as worthy of good things, of being happy, they can self-sabotage. It's really hard to be happy when you look through the lens of seeing yourself as inferior, not enough. And then past traumatic experiences. These can create fearful, anxious and negative thoughts in people where they may distrust others. They may think that life is out to get them and that it's their fault. And therefore they need to go through life miserable. There's also hormonal imbalances. These can contribute to people seeing things negatively and feeling sad and empty. Unresolved grief and loss, repressed emotions, and that's what I mean by unresolved, where people block and stuff down their emotions with alcohol, drugs, food. They don't keep themselves busy with exercise, work. They don't allow themselves to feel emotions. So they hold them inside their body. This creates stress, tension, and a negative attitude and mood. Identity as a person who's realistic and practical. So some people really pride themselves on being very analytical and very realistic. They don't want to be seen as a person who's positive. They want to be seen as a person that can show that there are risks and challenges, and they want to focus on what can go wrong. And if you create an identity around that, this is going to be a habitual way of operating and being. And sometimes you can see that in people that have very analytical jobs, where they're paid to look for worst case scenario, what can go wrong, what are the risks. And sometimes I work with a lot of very senior professionals in these kind of jobs that say, yeah, it works great for my career, it's not working great for my relationship, it's not working great for me in my social life. Can you help me switch off my negative mindset outside of the workplace? And then there's those that are living with anxiety, and they see anxiety as a normal way of thinking. It's become to them a helpful way of functioning. A lady and a man that I worked with, a couple, contacted me after searching for relationship support because of the high levels of negativity and misery present in their relationship as they described it. So to protect their identities, I used the name Adrienne and James. Adrienne felt deeply unsatisfied in her relationship because James was always putting a negative spin on everything. It was beginning to cause tension when doing things as a family, but also things Adrienne was choosing to do, including things she did in the house, how she dressed, who she spent time talking to on the phone, and even what she ate. He was shoulding her all the time, telling her what she should and shouldn't do, telling her how bad everything was for her. For example, he was saying that you shouldn't eat that, you'll get ill. You shouldn't drink that, it's bad for you. You should do this exercise, otherwise you could damage yourself. You should sleep at this time. He also pointed out other faults that he thought she had and how she was failing, like saying, your work is taking advantage of you. They haven't given you a pay rise. Your friends don't respect you as they're showing up late. Your parents don't respect me because they don't ask enough about me when they call the family. He not only saw negative in her, he saw negative in all of the areas of her life. And it was really draining her. James also had the habit of seeing everything that cost money as a negative, moaning about the price of everything. And even money spent on really good times that they had, he complained about. It was draining Adriana to the point of exhaustion. She did not feel financially comfortable or free at all. She felt low and fed up. To her, every day had started to become a struggle. She noticed that the complaining was also influencing the way their two boys were behaving. She felt the house lacked laughter, lacked energy, that there was aggression and tension in the air, and the children were fighting more. She was getting tired of trying to be the positive one, and she ended up adopting James's pessimistic attitude. And this is when she asked me, are some people addicted to unhappiness? Can people change? What if they enjoy being miserable? Does that mean it's going to be like this forever? To which I responded, of course, things can change. All thoughts and beliefs and behaviours can be changed. And when we change our thinking, our emotions change with them. So does our physiology, our body. By that I mean, and even financial success and relationship happiness will shift when the thoughts change. In order for it to change, however, there needs to be one, a willingness to change, a motivation to change that comes from the person who is negative or miserable. You can't do it for them, they have to want to do it for themselves. They have to realise that their current way of thinking is not serving their health, and that negative thoughts can create disease in the body, which is part of the thing that I first explained. I explained to them as well how it can dampen the relationship, how it can affect the self-esteem of children, of others in the relationship, how it can affect the work life, and just general success. Because if you believe that there aren't good opportunities out there, you're not going to take the action, you're not going to pay attention to great opportunities when they come and hit you in the face. Because you've switched off, you've turned off noticing the possibilities in life. So that's the first step, understanding that change is possible and there's a motivation to change. And then there needs to be an agreement to shift the thinking at the conscious and the unconscious level. It's not enough to do traditional talk